Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here for this daily medicine transmission. This is really a transmission for the weekend, and I don't often get direct transmissions meant to share ET transmissions, but I definitely got one today. So this is also a Pleiadian transmission that is all wrapped up into this whole process here. So welcome. Thank you for joining me. It is Friday, February 12th, 2021. Wow, man, the moon has moved into Pisces, and I don't know about you, but that was a big shift. That was a sigh of relief. Oh, I felt like, and I know other people too. Oh, wow. Felt like I was gonna pop yesterday. That new moon was so intense and so activating and so just like, when the moon moved into Pisces, it was like we just melted. That's what it felt like. I had a good friend go into a float tank for the first time yesterday, so I'm actually going to listen to her account of that after I'm done here. I'm really excited. If you've never done flotation tank, this moon in Pisces is very much like that. It's just going into this weightless, total sensory deprivation, and just your body starts to unwind. And that's really what today feels like now that the moon has moved into Pisces. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the astrology for the weekend. It is Valentine's Day. The thumbnail and the imagery that I used is, man, that pink chakra, heart chakra is coming out strong. And that's, I don't get very long transmissions when I channel, especially galactic and ET transmissions. Not hardly any come out as these really long, drawn out soliloquies. They are really just right to the point, one phrase, and sometimes it's just a thought form and that I have to interpret. And a lot of times that's what it is thought forms that the filter of your mind is then able to interpret. And we've talked about this before, right? That there are two parts to your psychic and intuitive awareness, which is your perception and your interpretation. So oftentimes people will have these very long, multi-paragraph channelings. Mine are just like right to the point, one phrase, sometimes even just one sentence, and sometimes it's just imagery. But the Pleiadians came in very strong today because I've been thinking about how do we protect ourselves? How do we have boundaries, but at the same time remain vulnerable? Because that is going to be the Pisces archetype when the sun and Venus come into Pisces. I talked a lot about that in the new moon report, so you can check that out. I will link it at the end of this video, as well as the transmission from yesterday. It'll be linked at the end of that video as well. When we come into Pisces season, it's really easy right now to be a little bit aloof and detached with Aquarius. That's kind of part of the archetype, is this detachment, because we're much more in our mental state and our intellectual awareness, even though it is highly spiritual and it's very much based on this out of the box, unconventional way of relating to each other and the connection of all of the nodes within the network that is the collective. It is still a mental exercise. We are working with our intelligence and our mental efficiency to connect, through our third eye. That is, the pineal gland is still in our heads, in our brain, and even though it's a gland, which is part of our endocrine system, which has to do more with biochemical, it's still part of our nervous system, and it's still part of our perception. And so it's a little bit easier to be a little aloof and kind of detached emotionally, because it's the emotional content that we use in order to be a medium for the power to move through, right? The lightning bolt moves through the conductor of water. Well, now that when we go into Pisces, especially the sun and Venus, it's as it is every year. This is the end of the cycle of the year. This is when the energy starts to really dissipate and we do start to lose ourselves emotionally because everything is coming back into source. And if we don't have a good sense of who we are and where we belong and haven't worked on our own boundaries up until that point, this is when things can get just a little bit too overwhelming for us. And we do feel like we're losing power. We do feel like we're losing ourselves. And it's very easy to get caught up in other people's emotions. This is the realm of the martyr and victimhood because the boundaries do dissolve and we find ourselves directly connecting to the emotional experiences of other people and not really, Aquarius, it's like the lightning bolt of awareness constantly. And so even with that new moon yesterday, we're all ready to pop because it's just so much energy that we're holding. And now that the moon has moved into Pisces and it's over this weekend of Valentine's Day, this is a little bit of a trial run emotionally to how do we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to have this heart open space, to really bring in that pink heart chakra energy of healing and compassion without letting ourselves go completely, because it's essential. We need to be open and vulnerable emotionally to a certain extent so that we can have compassion. Compassion doesn't come from a mental construct. It comes from a experiential construct, an emotionally connective experience when we can feel how other people may feel in their situation. And that's where compassion comes from. It doesn't mean we excuse people's destructive behavior. It doesn't mean that we make excuses for people when they fuck up and ourselves, right? But it allows us to identify that we're all human, and we can't do that until we become vulnerable. So I've been really thinking about how do we protect ourselves? How do we insulate ourselves, right? With that North Node right now, how do we insulate our minds from the outside onslaught of what? Psychic attacks, mind control, brainwashing, all of that stuff. And just the inundation of information that Gemini represents. How do we protect ourselves and have boundaries, know what they are, while at the same time allowing ourselves to be vulnerable? Because the Pleiadian starseed resonance and frequency. This is what I do with my clients when we do starseed readings and the Pleiadian aspect comes up. We talk about this because it's important to realize that the Pleiadians are here to teach us how to connect through the heart and the heart space and the heart chakra. Boundaries are fluid with the Pleiadian star seeds. These are the empaths. These are the spiritual healers. These are the people who they are able to connect directly to others, and that is how they activate and facilitate healing. The very poor boundaries with Pleiadian star seeds, right? This is the empath curse in some ways. You know, you're really taken in by narcissistic tendencies and people when you are not aware of your Pleiadian traits and not being able to work with them consciously. Food sensitivities are a big part of the Pleiadian starseed situation, because again, it's just the boundaries are so loose and fluid. Gender roles are fluid with Pleiadians, and that doesn't necessarily mean being transgendered. It means that Pleiadian starseed individuals are able to move along the spectrum of their masculine and feminine easily and can adapt very easily. And that's the thing about Pisces, the moon in Pisces, it is mutable water. Wow, so adaptable. Just like liquid is going to fill any vessel that it's in, but in Pisces there is no vessel, right? There's no vessel that we're filling. It is just the expansive ocean of consciousness. And if we are not consciously and intentionally aware of this, and we haven't done the work up to this point, then we do lose ourselves. And this is the realm of addiction. This is the realm of being taken in by propaganda, Neptune and Pisces. And this has been the case for a while. Neptune is now reaching the last decan of Pisces. So it's been years and years and years of Neptune in this Pisces place, really giving us a run for our money in this way. So like I said, with the moon in Pisces, Valentine's Day weekend, we're really going to get a little bit of a training, an emotional training, because it's not going to be so much that we're identifying with Pisces. It's going to be that we're feeling into it. And the moon is very much connected to the Pisces archetype, because the moon is our inner water. And that's what Pisces is, our water, our emotional connection to source. And that's really what came through with the Pleiadians. It's very short and simple. It is essentially that if you shield yourself, it's not even shielding. When your light is shining so bright, there is no darkness there. And if we mistake shielding with, we want to protect ourselves. We want to keep out those elements that that are causing us harm, or want to cause us harm, or manipulate us, right? Or lead us to victimizing us. Okay. And we want to protect ourselves. And that's where the nodes are right now, but it's from the mind and the mental perspective. And this is about the energetic hygiene is so important. I talked about this last year. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe, I couldn't have even anticipated where we would be at the time that I made that video about energetic hygiene and how important it would be. I naively thought, all these, awake and woke people will totally get this. And oh, wow, I had no idea that it would be such a struggle. So the energetic hygiene is so important, but how do we keep ourselves from being totally closed off to vulnerability? Because that is the Pleiadian transmission, is that it's only the armor of God that will quote unquote protect you. When you try to shield yourself with your own energy or your own ego construct, then you don't leave yourself vulnerable. And when we don't do that, we can't cultivate compassion. We can't, because we can't allow ourselves to actually emotionally connect with other people, even other people that have challenged us, other people that have, even worked towards victimizing us. We have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to feel into those spaces if we want to cultivate compassion, because that's the only way forward. And that's the essence of the Pleiadian transmission. I don't have any of these, I don't channel in the way that a lot of people channel. I don't have all of these, like I said, it's not the soliloquy. It's just real basic, right? We have to, it's almost like, it's kind of counterintuitive in some ways, and it's almost a paradox, because we have to protect ourselves in one way and be vulnerable in another. And the vulnerability comes from being being the spiritual warrior, right? Leaving our heart open and knowing that it will heal when it's damaged, because we are amazing creatures that can do that. And then from an emotional perspective. And sometimes what happens is that we've been hurt emotionally many times to the point where we shut ourselves down and we don't allow ourselves open. And there are so many splinters and damage to relationships that's been happening over the last year that we have to actually start addressing those things now. And the best way to do that is to allow ourselves to be vulnerable. And the moon in Pisces, for as scary as it may be and as much as it may hurt in some ways, this vulnerability is going to facilitate healing that needs to happen for us to move forward. We have to heal these fractures if we're going to hold all of this light that's going to come in and is coming in. That's the thing, is like this new moon was just such a huge upgrade that we have to find a way to hold it. And we can't do that if we're quote unquote shielding ourselves with our own energy and with our own ego and having such firm boundaries that we can't even allow ourselves to emotionally connect to anything else. Sometimes we have to emotionally connect to those who have done wrong so we can understand where they're coming from and understand that we hold that same potential. We really do, every single person. So with this Valentine's Day weekend and with the moon in Pisces, I think that we're in a really good position to practice this right now. Tell people that we love them. It's going to be easy with Mercury and Venus coming together, okay? It'll be seamless to tell people that you love them, that you value them, and yourself. Tell yourself that you love yourself and that you value yourself and the work that you're doing in order to, bring about this new earth. We all have so much work to do, but at the same time, we can really, we can really tell ourselves that we love ourselves. And so the Pleiadians are definitely here. They're so right here right now, and to support us and to also share their love and affection with us. And if we can, we can connect to that. We can get some guidance from that. Miracles of healing can happen. And I think we're very aware right now, the divides and the rifts, and we can't keep emotionally, how do I say this? We can't keep emotionally shutting ourselves off from that which, from those who seem to hurt us if we're ever going to feel compassion or, even practice forgiveness. So I personally have been having some, dreams of friends that I haven't talked to in a while, people that I've really lost touch with, and like connecting to the aspects of our friendship that were good and that I learned from and that I have value. And so you can, even if you can't talk to those people right now, you can still extend that energy to them and extend that energy to the relationship of what you value about them, what you valued about your friendship and relationship, how it impacted and enriched your life. That might not be the case anymore, but the more we focus on those aspects, I think the more we're going to be able to heal, so that when we do come into Pisces season full on with the sun and especially Venus, they're both going to meet Neptune during this lunar cycle. And then we have a new moon on the 13th of March in Pisces. We really can learn interdependence with each other when we can start having some compassion for each other and really open our hearts and be vulnerable. Now, that doesn't mean, again, just letting yourself be run over, being psychically attacked. This is what the nodes are for. This is what the tinfoil hat is for. I put this ridiculous meme that I made up on social media about that, because that's where the North Node is right now. Know your people, insulate your mind, and not so you're not being attacked from the outside with all of these signals, right? But that's different than emotional vulnerability. And I think we need to practice that right now. So I'm going to look at the chart a little bit. Let's see here. And then we'll go into the reading, because ultimately the Pleiadian transmission really just rolled right into the intuitive message that came out with the cards, which is, it's not going to be easy to go into this space. I mean, going into this, the moon is just barely coming back now. I mean, it's probably just a sliver of light with this moon in Pisces. So this is a dark, confusing, strange place that has no boundaries. We don't even know where we end and begin with a moon in Pisces. But this is a good opportunity to connect with other, to connect a little bit more broadly, to allow ourselves into our own Akashic records and those of the people that we're connected with, so we can see how everything that's unfolded has been very karmic, to learn something. And there's value there. Remember, that is the new moon in a nutshell. How can we take these situations and for good or for bad, and see the deeper wisdom in them, and then be able to communicate them, to teach them, to hold that resonance for others, because it's all been a teaching opportunity. So let's look at the chart real quick for the weekend, Valentine's Day weekend, right? Here we go. Beep, beep, beep. I hope everybody is doing well and taking good care of themselves. I mean, definitely drinking lots of water is so essential right now, especially with the moon in Pisces. We really need to stay hydrated because there's still a lot of stuff in Aquarius, okay? The sun is still in Aquarius. Mercury is still in Aquarius. Venus, Aquarius. Jupiter, Aquarius. Saturn, Aquarius. The only thing that's changed now is the moon. So we're getting more emotionally into the emotions, right? We're gonna sink into that a little bit more. But there's still all of this energy in air signs and in Aquarius. So we still need to be hydrated because water is the conductor of the electricity and it's still moving and coursing through us right now. But we have to we need to replenish the medium, right? And that is the emotional aspect. Okay, so for the weekend, I mean, the big transits there's not much going on today. What I will say is the moon in Pisces is going to have a sextile to Uranus. And this is going to show later in the month how we are going to have these, really harmonious and opportunistic connection between this call to participation, right? Because Pisces is about the collective, the collective in an emotional sense, right? The collective karma we all have with each other, and Uranus, which is about being able to anticipate the future, having our imagination be oriented towards the future, knowing that we have what we need for what is coming, and this is the baseline of our awakening process. It's been so difficult with all of these squares, these fixed squares from Aquarius to Pisces, to Taurus. But then as we move into the Pisces time, it's going to be a little bit easier because it's emotionally, we can connect in to the natural process. That's the sextile. It's harmonious, but requires a participation. Water to earth. These are both feminine frequencies, feminine archetypes about receiving, about being still, about the internal and contraction, holding space, right? And where Pisces is the space, right? It's the everlasting infinite space that we connect to. And when we connect to that space, then again, we can connect to all time and space. And then we can see our role. Specifically with the moon sextile Uranus today, we can feel in and intuit our role and the development that is coming, right? Tomorrow acts through today, and this will be very subtle. It'll be something that'll be maybe not conscious, we're not consciously aware of. We're just going to feel it, right? Maybe it'll come in our dreams. But there is an evolutionary quote unquote crisis approaching. That's pretty obvious. And this position of the moon is our call to action, or not even that. It's more of our summons to rebirth. That's more appropriate. That's more accurate. And so our summons to rebirth here is going to really help facilitate our ability to hold the line as the earth-based, Taurus-based, the material organic shifting and cycles are unfolding. It allows us to hold the line as that is happening, and it's being disruptive with Uranus. So this it's going to be so subtle. To the point where we're not even going to be consciously aware of it or even have a strong intuition unless we are really allowing ourselves to sink in. And again, this is like that float tank, being able to just deprive ourselves of all the sensory input. Again, there are the nodes, deprive ourselves of all of the signals coming in and allowing ourselves to just sink in and let our body unwind. And this will, again, it'll really help us hold the line as we are waiting and anticipating. And this was Venus and Jupiter yesterday coming together in Aquarius, being able to anticipate what's coming because it exists right here already. It's just a matter of holding that resonance and not being distracted by the signals coming in to throw us off, okay? So when we come into tomorrow's the 13th, we got Saturday and Mercury meets Venus. This is the time where it's going to be easy. It's going to be easy to say I love you. It's going to be easy to see that we are being, it's two lovebirds sitting on a fence. That's the Sabian symbol, okay? And there are blessings bestowed upon our personal achievements by a spiritually fulfilled consciousness. So these two complementary aspects of spiritual reality are united, which is our ego and mind, that Mercury, and then we have Venus, which is our sensitivity and our love. And so there is a sense of reward, even if we're going to have some sort of communication and be sensitive to a sustained work on our spiritual path. There's going to be some manner of blessing tomorrow with this conjunction, even if it's just a subtle like tip of the hat or a nod, or somebody saying I love you, or you reaching out and acknowledging people in your life that maybe there have been some tension with or splits with. And we're going to see this in the transmission of the intuitive reading. It's very clearly stated here. The other aspect that's going to be here is that Mars in Taurus is going to sextile Neptune in Pisces as well. And this is, oh boy, this is, again, it's an awareness of spiritual forces at work. Mars in Taurus is really, getting down to what needs to be done. It's this dependable masculine, right? Putting our energy and our action and our will to transform into like the nuts and bolts of what need to happen, getting embedded in the medium of our growth rather than in the action outward. This is very, again, this is going to come up this really strongly in the reading. I can't wait to just show it to you because the sextile here, it's showing us that if we can really have faith in our, how do I say this? If we're going to have faith in who we are and realize that there is a new version of us starting to emerge out of this unconscious field, right? Out of the ocean, a new continent arising out of the ocean, an awareness of the spiritual forces at work. If we can put our confidence and our courage behind our own development. Again, where Neptune is very much about trusting this process and trusting the divine plan specifically, and trusting that everything is already set. We just have to go when it's time to go. So again, this is very much about cultivating our own consciousness, cultivating our own growth, putting our confidence and courage behind that, and knowing that will, again, there'll be an awareness that there is support. There'll be an awareness that this is a much bigger process than just us individually as well. There's going to be a measure of like, hey, you're on the right path this weekend. And at the same time with the moon in Pisces, it will allow us to like unfold a little bit, to relax, to just breathe for a second and like feel into these spaces, because it's not going to be so like, and it's been like that. I totally get it. And we've all been feeling that. So, the moon is going to square the nodes, as well. And the moon is going to also conjunct Neptune and sextile, Mars. And so the moon's going to be part of this Mars and Neptune coming together over the weekend, and is going to support this process and, give us the transmissions that we need intuitively and from an emotional perspective so that we can see that we're on the right path. It will square the nodes, right? Because again, it is about the mind and understanding with the nodes, and the moon in Pisces is about, the whole collective, unconscious, right? The Akashic field. And that there is an appeal here of a well-staged and exciting display, right? In a gigantic tent. And that is going to square where the nodes are, which is about protection and insulation. So we're going to feel, there's that one piece there that is still kind of pulling us back to like, we need to protect ourselves psychically and from the signals and from even the collective belief systems that are trying to put us in a certain place. But at the same time, we do have to allow ourselves to just kind of like dissolve into the process as well. It's going to be an interesting weekend, to say the least. And then we move on to Valentine's Day. And this is where Mercury meets, you can see here, Mercury meets Jupiter. Good news. This is definitely good news. This is good news and fortune when we have Mercury meeting Jupiter like this. And it's still going to be retrograde. And it's really about it's going to give us some insight on how we can, how do I say it? I don't want to say bypass, but it is kind of bypass. It's like a train going through a tunnel, right? So the one way is we could go all the way around or go all the way up over the mountain, and that could take a long time. Well, we can use our intellect and our intuition and our and this benefactor is going to come in and show us the way through, and it will. Like I said, it's going to be, Mercury's still retrograde, so it may not be totally clear. It may be much more about the internal process, but we're going to get good news, and it's going to be an expansion on how we can make this, we can just go right from A to B, like quantum. It's like quantum tunneling, kind of. That's the sense that I'm getting here. So that's Valentine's Day, and then the moon's going to move into Aries, and then there's the passion's going to come in. At that point, the moon's going to conjunct Chiron at that point. And there's going to just be a lot of passion. There's going to be a lot of fire. There's going to be a lot of will to action on an emotional level. But if we are really taking the time to be vulnerable over this weekend in a way that is aware and insulated on a mental level, but vulnerable on an emotional level, by the time the moon comes into Aries and meets Chiron, this can be an incredible healing moment where we are no longer a victim and identifying with a victim, but and not feeling ashamed of ourselves for the process of becoming. Because that's really what Chiron and Aries, we feel ashamed of ourselves for wanting to become, to individualize, to be ourselves. And so this is a really beautiful opportunity this weekend. So let's get into the actual reading, because that's also going to be very fun. So I'm going to check in with the stream real quick here, see what's going on over on the tubes. Yeah, okay. Making sure that it's working. All right, so as we can see here, the moon reversed, going into Temperance, or the art, number 14, the Sagittarius card, and then ending with number 11, the Passion, right? This is a whole lineup of major arcana trump cards, okay? There's some big things happening this weekend that are going to stimulate a lot of passion and devotional energy to ourselves and to creating the highest version of ourselves. We have Archangel Raphael at the top here. We know that there's something that needs to be healed. And you can see there, as we'll look at it closer, the pink heart chakra, the green orb, that's also related to the color of the heart chakra, is green. Got two kings here, King of Keys and King of Roses. There is some serious boss energy here in terms of, and masculine energy. Our Mars here, Mars is pretty active in a really dependable, grounded, passionate, purified way with Mars and Taurus. We got the unicorn, so our magic, and it's a very Piscean thing. And the kiwi, which I actually learned just through my research. Another thing that popped up about it was specifically about ancestry and guidance. So again, there's a lot of guidance here that we can plug into. And when we are in Pisces, we are talking about ancestral karma. We're talking about the morphogenetic field. We're talking about our own Akashic records. So we're tapping into so much more than just what's happening in the here and now. We're tapping into everything that has been and ever will be in the Akashic field. So let's go through it, shall we? So the moon reversed. It's never an easy thing to have the moon, right? This is the dark night of the soul. This is going into the realm of the underworld. This is, moon in this 8th house in Scorpio. And if you see here, it's actually related to Pisces. So here is our dark moon. It's not technically dark anymore because the new moon has passed. So it is now a waxing moon, but it is still pretty dark in Pisces. So oftentimes, even when it's reversed or even when it's upright, there's still a lot we have to face here. So in reversal, it can be about a rejection of reality and hysteria and illusion and all of that stuff, and getting lost in our shadow. So that is a potential right now for many people, is to just get lost in the shadow and looking into our own abyss. So no matter how you shake it here, it's still a troubling and fear-inducing experience to look into our own abyss, okay? But we have to walk through the darkness before we see the light. And we have to allow ourselves to go into this space so we can cultivate compassion for other people who are going through this same experience, but with different filters on it. So coming into the moment here is this moon in Pisces that is potentially rejecting of reality, but I feel like it's just, we're going real deep now, and allowing ourselves to completely go into the darkness and walk through it. And like with Pisces, there's nothing to grab onto. It is fog city, right? We just can't see anything. Sometimes you just have to sit down and wait for it to pass. Or you get down really low to the ground, and that is the way that you navigate, because you can't really see anything here. You can't. You have to feel your way around. And this feels very much connected to that right now, is that we're kind of just allowing ourselves to be emotionally guided and intuitively guided with the moon in Pisces. And it's not easy, okay? Now, when we come into the present moment here is art or temperance. This is the Sagittarius card. This is the alchemy. Fire, harmony and motion. So you can see these oppositions, this oppositional energy. Not only is it coming together, but it's in the cauldron, the fire of Sagittarius, the friction fire that creates the heat that then melts everything down, dissolves it down into one substance, and then we can create something new. So like water is mutable, Pisces, mutable water. Water is a solvent, but we're not creating anything when we get to this point. But with Sagittarius, fire is the catalyst for the change, because fire then creates the chemical reaction that, or it catalyzes the chemical reaction, and everything kind of dissolves down and becomes one thing, and then we create something new. This is what sacred alchemy is about, and understanding. This is when we understand something, we are practicing this process of alchemy, but with the realm of ideas. So even though we are going into this space and just dissolving ourselves emotionally into everything around us, and it's kind of scary, and we don't know which end is up, and we can't really navigate, what it's doing is leading us to this moment where we can actually take some initiative to bring these contrasts together, because at this point it's all the same with the moon in Pisces. So we can take some initiative and bring these contrasts together and dissolve them and combine them. There's also a feeling that we need to leave a fixed position when we see this card, right? You have to leave the one side and come to the other in order to understand. And I think this is really such a good way to characterize and symbolize the heart of this moment, the opportunity we have right now. We have got to leave our fixed position so that we can come over to the other side and actually feel into why people are making the decisions they are, why they have the perspectives that they do. And when we can do that, this is where actual understanding is going to come from. And so there is a need to leave a fixed position, because we can't understand unless we do that. And this card is about that. This is about the art of the alchemy. because we create something totally new when we do this. This is the synthesis, right? This is our dissertation, the ninth house, the higher education. We bring these aspects, these opposite aspects together. We dissolve them down. We melt them down in order to create something new. Okay. And this requires an initiative. Juno, asteroid Juno, the wife of Zeus or Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius. She's in Juno, or she's in Sag right now. There is a certain level of, commitment that we need to instill to do this process, to come together, and to leave a fixed position in order to experience the other side, so that we can bring them together and have understanding. This is also where the South Node is in Sagittarius. And so we can use this energy as a momentum to move forward. It's not where we're headed, but we can use it as where we've been, and recognize the power of this as we've done it before. We've done it before, and we can use that as the momentum to move forward into new spaces. But part of this is we have to actually leave one fixed position, and emotionally, we're doing this with the moon. This allows us to do this, and then we take the initiative to actually do the alchemy, okay? Now, we know that there are splits to be healed, right? Either our physical condition, emotional, in our families. Archangel Raphael is about healing. Like I said, you can see the heart chakra is pink, right? He's got the green orb, another healing color of the heart chakra. And he doesn't have any wings, right? Because Archangel Raphael often comes in the guise of a human as a guide. Okay. So that's something to consider too. But at the top of our awareness, we know that there needs to be healing. And there is definitely many things troubling us, many things. People that are seemingly participating in, actions or through their complacency, are supporting a course of action or a course of many actions that we've seen in the past have led to certain things. And everybody sees it from a different perspective. But there is a split, and we are feeling very troubled by it. And we do see the need for healing, and we want this miraculous healing. And so we can ask for help. We can ask for support from these ascended masters, these archangels, these guides, however we want to characterize them in a symbolic and archetypal way. It's important to realize, though, that we do see and we know that there needs to be healing. And we are asking for it because it's not here. Okay. Now, at the root of things here, we talked about Mars and Taurus. Here's our King of Keys. Confident, astute, goal-oriented. And when we're talking about Taurus, I mean, we're talking about our own objective reality here, what we have, our assets, the second house. Management, which is a very Aquarian thing. The second decan, or the second half of Aquarius, is about management. This is, if we can root ourselves here energetically into this very confident and astute and dependable and determined energy, this is how we can really protect ourselves without closing ourselves off. Because, you know, this king here, I mean, he has armor on. He's got a sword. This is his kingdom, but he doesn't look like he's really, doing much to protect himself. He's very confident in what is his and what are his assets. He's very confident in what he has developed as a result of his hard work. He is very confident in, the resources that are available to him. And this is something we can really root into, especially with Mars in a sextile to Neptune this weekend, Mars in Taurus. So this is a way that we can feel protected, because it's not about closing ourselves off. It's about standing in our power of what we have and what we have been developing with Mars in Taurus this whole time. Remember, Mars went into Taurus on January 6th. That was the beginning, right? Where the seed point became embedded in the medium in which it would grow. And we are starting to feel now, coming into that last decan of Taurus, the growth, what is growing. That sprout has popped out of the seed already and is now pushing its way up through the soil. That only comes through a trust in the fact that there will be a point where it breaks out. And so there's confidence and determination and dependability in this energy that we can root into. If we can bring this up through our subconscious into the moment, this is really going to support us. Because where we're going here is the lust card. Again, number 11, passion, our animal passion. Here's our Leo card. Great for Valentine's Day when the moon moves into Aries. So Aries is a little different than Leo, of course. Aries is much more about the ego consciousness wanting to be, whereas Leo is more about the devotion of the self to the spiritual work through creative expression. Either way, we are going to have a fire lit and wanting to push some creative aspect up and out. It does, again, remind me of in some ways, that sprout's going to push up through the soil. And that's going to be very strongly reflected when Mars comes into Gemini on March 3rd, right? That's going to be that energy of that sprout popping up and reaching up towards the sun. And it's communication, information. We're going to have some serious confidence about that in the coming weeks. But for now, this is more about, where we are going with this, how do we stay vulnerable and connected and at the same time use our confidence and determination to really do the actual work of alchemy. And when we do that, I think it's going to re-inspire us to devote ourselves to the work. We're going to get an infusion, I think, this weekend. And this really strongly reflects that. So some guidance here for this process. Let's see here. Number 1, the 7 of Keys. When we're talking about Archangel Raphael, remember this process of healing. It's an individual process. We can ask for support. We can look for guidance. But at the end of the day, we have to put one foot in front of the other on this ascension path. And it's just us. It's just us. And we have to actually do the work. Right? We have to actually do the work and climb the mountain. And it's not going to happen by luck. It's going to happen because we do it. And so we do know that things need to be healed. There are splits. We want to heal these aspects. And we have to take the initiative to do it if we want it to manifest in reality, which is what the keys represent, the actual material world. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't indulge our creative and imaginative side. I mean, we are talking about Pisces here. This is inspiration all day long. And so artistic expression, whatever way that we artistically express ourselves and indulge our creative side can really give us some insight on maybe how to do this, think a little bit outside of the box, maybe use our imaginations a little bit. It doesn't have to be so serious all the time, but we do have to do the work at the same time. But being open to this Piscean energy will inspire us. I mean, look at the unicorn. It's got this halo around its head, and it's such a beautiful energy. There's just so much of that pink heart chakra that is just everywhere right now, that is really just softening everything and allowing us to connect to this imaginative side of us and this magical, mystical side of us. This is where miracles happen, right? When we indulge this part of ourselves. When it comes to the King of Keys, this is do a walking meditation every day, right? The Kiwi. So some key words that came out here for this is being grounded, survival, right? Survival and flexibility. Fatherhood came out, and that I thought was very interesting because these two kings are also coming out, and Mars. And Saturn, I guess, is technically much more about the fatherhood, but we are talking about confidence and dependability and courage, right? With these two, with Mars, and then we have the King of Keys and the King of Roses. I mean, the King of Roses especially, that is definitely a dad energy because you're connected to the masculine and to your heart as well. And that is a very supportive dad energy, right? This supportive male protective energy. So there's an earthiness here, an ancient wisdom with the kiwi, an inspiration. And it's really just saying that we have to just put, again, one foot in front of the other, take the time to do the meditation, whatever our meditative process is, and bring it into our physical realm here. And being grounded. The King of Keys is grounded. Okay. Even the King of Roses, there is groundedness with the king. Okay. An ancient wisdom, asking for support, connecting to those who have come before us. Maybe it is about connecting with our paternal lineage in some ways, our fathers, our grandfathers, seeing how they responded to some of these issues. At the same time. And then we have the King of Roses again, balance of passion and purity, right? King of love, and potential union. So Mars, sextile, Neptune in Pisces, tenderness, thoughtful support, ready to take loving but considerate action on our own behalf. That's the other thing too. We have to take this action on our own behalf, and it's loving, but we actually have to take the action. Again, this is where Mars comes in, taking action, okay? It's an incredible weekend, and I think that this moon in Pisces, like I said, is going to allow us to have a little bit of a trial run for when we come into Pisces season and we're full on identifying with everything around us emotionally. So right now we're getting kind of like, a lot of good messages, some good news, and a lot of support on how to heal some of these rifts. And it's going to take us reaching out and doing that work if we want something to happen. Miracles can happen. They absolutely can. But we actually have to lay the groundwork for that to happen as well, right? God helps those who help themselves. So just sitting around waiting for things to happen is not being determined at all, right? So Mars is something that we can really tap into. And these two kings coming out, this is really saying, like, get grounded into your determination to make change, okay? But it does come from a sense of vulnerability and a willingness to cultivate compassion as well. So that's the transmission, the Pleiadian transmission, the daily medicine transmission, the astrology for the weekend. You have enough tools, I would say, for all of us to ride this out for the weekend. Enjoy your weekend, whatever you end up doing. Come join us on Telegram. It is way more fun over there. We got a chat going, and we can interface a lot easier than we can on Facebook in terms of chatting and sharing ideas. Everything you need is in the description box below. It's still not too late to do lunar transit reading. You can access that on the website and book it. It's a really reasonable rate, and it gives you a sense of what to expect for the coming lunar month in regards to your natal chart. And so that is something that you can access as well. And you can always reach out with email, of course. Everything you need is in the description box below. If you're watching this on YouTube or BitChute, please consider subscribing. It helps get this content out to other people who find it helpful, because if you find it helpful and valuable, I guarantee other people will too. Definitely hit that like button. It does the same thing. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you holding space for me to do my work, and it's all for all of us. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. Bye.